Hi guys, thank you for stopping by my channel today. I'll be sharing with you some information or education about a topic that is very sacred and it's also very common, and that is grief. All of us are going to experience grief in one way or another. So some of us have experienced it before and some of us will, but either way we are all going to experience it, and it really depends on the magnitude of grief and the reason why we are grieving. I don't know why you're here. I would like to assume that you're here because you probably are going through grief, you just lost a loved one, or you anticipating losing a loved one, or you're into a position where you have been grieving for some time like me, and you're trying to find all the information you can about this process and to see how you are growing or healing or different factors. Either way, grief is a natural reaction to loss, and we all are going to experience loss, or we have experienced loss before. So you are at the right place, because I will be talking about grief in my own experience. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ida. I am a widow. I lost my husband during COVID. I'm not new to grief though. I lost my mom when I was 19. I lost my dad when I was 13. So grief has been a very important part of personal growth journey, and it still is. I just wanted to talk about grief from my own perspective as a grieving person, and let you understand a few things, and we can chat. So do you know that people actually commit suicide at the loss of a loved one? Actually, 1 out of 100 young widowers would be expected to attempt suicide the year following spousal loss. It's a very high risk for suicidal behavior. And then loss of a loved one, partner, spouse, and loss of a child are one of the grieviest forms of grief that you can ever experience. The most disheartening thing though, death is inevitable, and in one way or another, we all are going to experience this. The thing about grief is that it's very universal on an outside view, but then it's very unique to individuals or to how you react to it. And for that reason, I wanted to ask you, have you ever been in a very grieving situation and wondered whether you're on the right path to your healing journey? Am I doing too much? Am I really behaving the way grieving people are supposed to behave? Am I on the right course of my healing? Well, for me, I've experienced grief in a number of ways, but the most significant one that I'm going to be relating to is the most recent one, which is the loss of my husband, and that was during COVID. So because of what was going on with the whole world, I felt very weird. There was a time when I felt like the ground I'm walking on is actually shaking, and I would feel just a few minutes it may open up and swallow me. So that is a very extreme feeling, but I just wanted to give you an example of certain things that you can feel. And then I was wondering, am I going crazy? What is happening to me? And when you go to research about grief, I did, I never did go for counseling, because number one, it was a season where we were quarantining, and number two, it was something that I knew that hit me so bad, and that I just needed to do some inner work first for me to even stand out to a counselor and start explaining to them how I feel. I wanted to get in touch with my feeling for I could express them with someone else. What I did though, however, instead of going for grief counseling, I actually went for grief training. So I went for a class and trained and certified as a grief counselor. I guess you've heard about the stages of grief, the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, as they tend to say that they happen in that order when people go through grief. Well, for me, that did not work, and that's on a number of ways. Like when I lost my mom, that's when I started reading about this, because we didn't have counseling anyways, because I was back in Africa and I did not have anyone to really take me through these processes. But I'm always a researcher. I'm a social scientist. I was doing my first degree then, so I was like researching and understanding how I should really feel better. And that's when I had this, and I would ask myself, what stage of grief am I in now? Am I in depression? Am I coming out? It was very hard to relate. But when I lost my husband, I did not even bother to go there, because one thing that I learned was that there is no linear way of how this process goes. Like you cannot say, oh, I'm out of the denial phase now, I'm going to acceptance phase. No, it does not happen, because one thing that they don't really talk about so much is the grief waves and the grief triggers that will get you anytime. The grief triggers are things that are going to remind you of your loved one, or like are going to trigger you, like the word trigger, but like they can be very intense and they can give you some time, but then they can come back depending on what triggers you. So because of that, you can go through a wave of grieving all over again. That's why I feel like, and I think and I know that the process would never be like a straight line, because you never know when a grief trigger is gonna hit you. Unless you understand that and you conquer your grief triggers, I think then you can be able to get some degree of normalcy, and then you can really progress and feel how you're feeling. Another thing is that the factors of how we grieve are different, because it depends on what you lost, who you lost. Is it a mother? Is it a parent? Is it a spouse? And because of that, you're going to have a number of sub losses that come with the loss, the mega loss of your loved one. For example, and when I lost my spouse, it wasn't me losing him in terms of a friend, but also in terms of security, in terms of the father to my children, in terms of like the physical presence, because he was like a very big pillar in my life, and we do everything together, we talk all the time, my confidant. It's like I lost certain things that I couldn't get from anywhere. We are not losing just the person, but every sub loss that comes with it is going to affect how you grieve. It's very hard to have anyone relate to your grief, because it's going to be you and you in this process, really. Grief and how it affects you varies from person to person. For example, grief is not only emotional, battle of the mind, it's the battle of the brain. Sometimes when we grieve, we are like totally confused. Grief can affect parts of your brain, and that's going to affect how you do work in your ways. So because of that, you may find yourself very, very disorganized and very, very unfocused, because maybe when you lost someone, you had like a vision, or he was like your partner and you were working out things together. You had goals and you had a big mission and vision. So you lost so much in terms of now your partner is gone and you have no drive. And there you have to change the whole trajectory of your life, because where are you going now? Also, if you were the kind who surrendered to like a husband to kind of lead, then you have no drive, you have no vision. Your vision is gone, and you have to go back to the drawing board and redraw, restructure your life. It's a transformational process. It's not just an event, but it's like a process of series that is going to affect your life for like forever. It is very hard to navigate the effects of grief and how you should grieve, or the process. You have nowhere to measure your grief. Find ways to work around it. If you're having a terrible time navigating through grief, just know that it's okay not to be okay. I can relate with you because it's hard and we are trying our best. You're trying to do everything you can do, but you're not feeling like you're progressing. It's okay, and understand that it is a feeling that you can acknowledge, but at the end of the day, however bad it feels, nothing lasts forever. Heck, even the loved one that you're grieving for did not last forever. And this is not something that you alone are experiencing. Everyone, today, tomorrow, next day, someone is going to lose someone. They say time will make you heal. I think you just have to grow through your healing journey. Educate yourself as much as you can and try to progress with your grief. We don't really heal, or we don't really move on from the people we love, but like we carry them in our hearts and we learn how to mitigate the effects. So with time, you are going to feel better because your coping skills and mechanism is going to grow better. Prioritize yourself, and if you have been affected in a way that you don't want to eat or you don't want to get out of bed, prioritize self-care. Be easy on yourself. This is a time for you to disconnect from everything else that is taking away from you. Your whole body is transitioning, your brain is transitioning, and you're growing into this transformational process. Focus on what you're going through, the easier for you to cope, And I'll also advise you to look at relevant information and keep growing and keep researching, keep reading. And at the end of the day, this will get better and you will know that it wasn't going to kill you like you felt before. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please check my other videos out. Subscribe to my channel. Let's walk this journey together. See you at the top. Love you.